Have you ever woken up from a dream so incredibly real, so vivid, so full of detail, that it felt less like a dream and more like a message? A message sent from somewhere beyond this world, a desperate warning meant to pull you back from the edge of danger before it was too late. My name is Emily Thompson. When I was about to turn 58, I truly believed the hardest parts of my life were already behind me. I had spent decades raising two beautiful children, Jessica and Michael, who had grown into kind, responsible adults that any mother would be proud of. I had built a warm, comfortable home in a peaceful neighborhood in Charlotte, North Carolina. A two-story house with pale blue shutters, a wraparound porch, and a backyard big enough for the grandkids to run wild on summer afternoons. My husband Robert and I had been married for 31 years. We had our routines, our little rituals that made life feel steady and safe. He was a successful financial advisor, respected at his firm, always dressed sharply, the kind of man people trusted with their retirement plans and their futures. I had left my nursing career behind years ago to focus on our family, and now I spent 3 peaceful days a week volunteering at the local public library. I loved the quiet hum of the shelves, the smell of old books, helping children find their next favorite story, and greeting the regulars who came in like clockwork. Our daughter Jessica lived just 20 minutes away with her husband David and our 2 grandchildren, Lily, who was 8 and already reading chapter books on her own, and little Ethan, 5 years old, full of endless energy and the sweetest hugs you've ever felt. They were the bright spots in our lives, filling weekends with laughter, sticky fingers from ice cream, and the kind of pure joy only grandchildren can bring. Life wasn't perfect, no one's is, but it felt secure. Predictable. Earned. The kind of calm that settles in after years of hard work, careful choices, and quiet sacrifices. But one ordinary Thursday night, everything changed. I had gone to bed early. We were just 2 days away from my big birthday dinner at Bella Vista, a lovely Italian restaurant downtown with a private room that overlooked the city lights. I had spent weeks planning, coordinating the guest list, choosing the menu, picking out centerpieces. It was going to be special. Friends, family, laughter, cake, a real celebration. Robert had stayed downstairs in his home office, saying he had one last client call to wrap up. I fell asleep easily, the way you do when everything in your world feels right. Then, sometime deep in the night, I woke up gasping. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat, in my fingertips, everywhere. The room was pitch black, the house silent except for the faint hum of the air conditioner. I clutched the sheets to steady myself, trying to catch my breath. And that's when I saw him. Standing at the foot of our bed, as clear and real as if the overhead light was blazing, was my father. My father, who had passed away 8 years earlier. He was 78 when a sudden heart attack took him while he was raking leaves in the backyard of the little house he and Mom had shared for over 50 years. We never got to say goodbye. It happened so fast. Yet there he was. Wearing his favorite burgundy cable knit sweater, the one he put on every single fall without fail. His silver hair neatly combed, just the way he always kept it. His steady gray eyes I had inherited, locked on mine with an intensity that made the air feel thick and heavy. He didn't smile. He didn't move closer. He simply spoke, in that calm, deep voice I had known my entire life. Emily. A pause. As if he was choosing his words carefully. Whatever you do, don't wear the dress Robert gave you. I tried to sit up. Tried to speak. But my body felt frozen in place. Promise me, honey, he continued, his voice growing more urgent. Don't put it on. He repeated it twice more, each time more insistent, his face tightening with a worry I had rarely seen when he was alive. Then, slowly, he began to fade. Like smoke dissolving in the wind. Until the room was empty again, and I was alone in the dark, trembling, my nightgown soaked with sweat. I glanced at the clock on the nightstand, 2:17 a.m. Robert slept peacefully beside me, breathing slow and even, completely unaware. I sat there for a long, long time, shaking, trying to make sense of what I had just experienced. It was just a dream, I told myself. Grief can resurface in strange ways, especially around birthdays and milestones. Stress from all the party planning. That's all it was. But no matter how many times I repeated those words in my head, the warning stayed. It sat heavy on my chest, like an invisible hand I couldn't brush away. The morning light came soft and golden through the bedroom curtains, the way it always did in early spring. Birds were singing outside. The neighbor's sprinkler clicked on with its familiar rhythm. Everything looked exactly the same as it had for the last 20 years. But nothing felt the same. I moved through the kitchen on autopilot, measuring coffee grounds, filling the pot, watching the dark liquid drip slowly into the carafe. My hands were steady enough to hold the mug, but inside I was still trembling from the night before. Every few minutes my eyes drifted toward the living room. There, on the side table beside Robert's favorite armchair, sat the cream-colored gift box. It had been there for 2 full weeks now, the emerald satin ribbon still tied in a perfect bow, untouched since the night he brought it home. I could still see that evening so clearly in my mind. Robert had walked through the front door later than usual, a strange sparkle in his eyes and a secretive smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. He was carrying the box like it was something fragile and priceless. "Close your eyes, Em," he had said, his voice lighter and more excited than I had heard in years. I laughed, thinking maybe it was jewelry, or concert tickets, or some other small surprise. When he told me to open them, he was holding the box out toward me with both hands. "Go on," he urged gently. "Open it." I lifted the lid and peeled back layers of delicate white tissue paper. Inside lay the most beautiful evening gown I had ever seen. Emerald green silk that caught the lamplight and shimmered like water rippling in sunlight. The cut was classic and elegant, a fitted bodice that would hug without clinging too tightly, a skirt that flowed softly to just below the knee, delicate cap sleeves that would flatter my arms without making me feel overexposed. It was exactly the kind of dress I would have chosen for myself if I had all the money in the world and a reason to dress up. It was perfect. Robert stood there watching me, hands clasped in front of him, that smile still playing on his lips. "I found this wonderful seamstress," he explained. "Margaret Hayes, someone a colleague at the office recommended. She does custom work for all the society women around town. I described you to her, showed her a few photos, and she made it from scratch." He stepped closer, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "The color will bring out your eyes, Em. Everyone at the dinner is going to see how beautiful you still are. This is going to make the whole night special." I remember the tears that welled up in my eyes. Robert wasn't the grand gesture type. Anniversaries were usually a nice card and dinner at our favorite steakhouse. Birthdays meant flowers and maybe a new sweater. This felt different. Thoughtful. Romantic, even. I hugged him tight, whispered thank you over and over, and promised right then and there that I would wear it to the birthday dinner. He pulled back just enough to look at me, his hand still on my shoulders. "You have to wear this one, Emily," he said, his voice soft but insistent. "Nothing else will do." At the time, it sounded sweet, like he was proud of his gift and couldn't wait to see me in it. But now, After the dream, after Dad's warning, those same words echoed differently in my mind. You have to wear this one. Nothing else will do. I remembered how his smile hadn't quite reached his eyes that night. How he had watched me hold the dress up to myself in front of the mirror, studying my reflection more than the gown. How he had repeated himself quietly, almost under his breath, "It's going to be perfect." I tried to shake it off while I sipped my coffee. It was just a dream. A strange, emotional dream brought on by stress and old grief. That's all. But the unease sat heavy in my chest all morning. Around 10:30, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find a pleasant-looking woman in her mid-60s standing on the porch. Silver hair pinned neatly back, warm smile, carrying a garment bag draped carefully over one arm. "Mrs. Thompson?" "Emily?" she asked kindly. "I'm Margaret Hayes. I believe your husband scheduled a final fitting for the gown today." My stomach tightened instantly, but I forced a smile and invited her in. We went upstairs to the bedroom. She chatted lightly about the weather and how spring was finally arriving as she unzipped the garment bag with practiced care. The emerald silk spilled out like liquid light, catching the sunlight that streamed through the window. "Go ahead and try it on, dear," she said warmly. "Let's make sure everything is just right." I stepped behind the old wooden dressing screen in the corner, the one Robert and I had bought on our honeymoon in Savannah, and slipped out of my clothes. The cool silk glided over my skin as I pulled the dress on. It felt luxurious. Expensive. Like something made for someone far more glamorous than me. When I stepped out, Margaret clasped her hands together in delight. "Oh my goodness, it's exquisite on you. The color is absolutely stunning, look how it brings out the green flecks in your eyes." She circled me slowly, pinning a tiny spot near the hem, smoothing the skirt with gentle hands. "Your husband was very particular about the details," she said conversationally as she worked. "He wanted extra reinforcement in the lining, especially around the waist and bodice. Said he wanted it to hold its shape all evening long, no matter how much you moved or danced or celebrated." Reinforcement. The word landed strangely in the quiet room. I nodded politely, thanked her, asked about her grandchildren, she had 4, all under 10, and made small talk while she finished her adjustments. 20 minutes later she was packing up her pins and thread, promising it would be ready for tomorrow night. The moment her car pulled away from the curb, I was alone again with the dress hanging on the back of the closet door. Beautiful. Elegant. Waiting. Dad's voice rang clear as a bell in my head. "Don't wear the dress." I laughed at myself out loud, actually laughed, a short, nervous sound that echoed in the empty house. "Emily, you're being ridiculous. It's a gorgeous gift from your husband. You're letting a dream turn you into a paranoid fool." But the feeling wouldn't leave. It gnawed at me all afternoon. The afternoon stretched on, quiet and ordinary on the surface. Robert was still at the office. The house was silent except for the occasional creak of old wood settling and the distant hum of traffic from the main road. I tried to keep busy, folding laundry, watering the plants on the windowsill, answering a few birthday messages on my phone. But no matter what I did, my mind kept circling back to that dress. It hung there in the closet like a silent challenge. Beautiful. Innocent looking. Perfect. Dad's warning played on repeat in my head. "Don't wear the dress. Promise me, honey." I told myself over and over that I was being irrational. That dreams aren't messages from the other side. That my father, as much as I missed him, couldn't actually reach across the years to warn me about something as harmless as a birthday gown. Yet the feeling grew stronger with every passing hour. A quiet, insistent pull that I couldn't ignore. By late afternoon, the house was bathed in that soft golden light that comes just before sunset. Robert had texted that he'd be home a little late, another client meeting running long. I had the place to myself. Something inside me snapped. I walked upstairs, almost in a trance, and opened the closet door. The emerald silk caught the light immediately, shimmering like it was alive. I reached out and lifted the dress off the hanger, the fabric cool and heavy in my hands. I carried it to the bed and laid it out carefully, smoothing the skirt with my palms. From the outside, it was flawless, every stitch perfect, every seam straight, the silk glowing softly in the fading daylight. I ran my fingers along the bodice, the sleeves, the hem. Everything felt exactly as it should. Then I turned it inside out. My breath caught a little as I examined the lining. It was a soft ivory silk, expertly sewn, nothing out of the ordinary at first glance. But near the waist, right where the bodice met the skirt, the lining felt different. Slightly thicker. A tiny ridge that ran along the seam, so subtle you'd never notice it unless you were deliberately searching for something wrong. My heart started to pound. I sat down on the edge of the bed, the dress spread across my lap, and just stared at that ridge for a long moment. Was I imagining it? Was this what going crazy felt like, seeing danger where there was none? I thought about hanging it back up. About laughing at myself tomorrow night when I wore it to the dinner and everything was fine. About telling Laura the whole silly story over coffee next week and us having a good chuckle about my overactive imagination. But then I thought, what if I'm right? What if Dad really was trying to tell me something? What if putting this dress on tomorrow night, surrounded by friends and family, laughing and celebrating, was the last thing I ever did? My hands began to shake. I opened the nightstand drawer and pulled out my small sewing kit, the one I kept for mending buttons and hemming pants. Inside were tiny silver scissors with sharp, precise blades. I sat there for what felt like forever, scissors in hand, staring at the dress. One little snip wouldn't ruin it. Margaret could fix it easily if I was wrong. I took a deep breath. One careful snip along the inner seam near the waist. Then another. I peeled the lining back gently, almost afraid to look. And there it was. A fine, white powder rubbed evenly into the fabric, thin, uniform, almost invisible unless you knew to look for it. When I opened the seam wider, a light dusting fell onto the quilt beneath, settling quietly like fresh snow. I jerked my hand back as if I'd been burned. There was no smell. No texture I could feel between my fingers. Just that innocent-looking white residue. But deep in my bones, in the deepest part of me that still remembered my father's voice, I knew. This wasn't starch. This wasn't extra padding or some special stiffener for the lining. This was wrong. Terribly, deliberately wrong. I couldn't move. I just sat there frozen, staring at the powder scattered across my grandmother's handmade quilt, waiting for it to do something, move, dissolve, anything. Time lost all meaning. Minutes? 10? 20? Finally, I forced myself to stand. My legs felt like jelly beneath me. I backed away from the bed slowly, as if the powder might reach out and grab me. I grabbed my phone from the dresser with trembling fingers. There was only one person in the world I could call with something this terrifying. Laura Bennett. My best friend since nursing school, over 35 years of shared secrets, late-night study sessions, tears, laughter, and everything in between. Laura had been there when I married Robert. When Jessica and Michael were born. When Mom passed. When Dad had his heart attack. She had held my hand through every major moment of my life. And now she worked as a senior forensic lab technician at the hospital downtown. She had spent decades analyzing substances most people only saw on television crime shows. I dialed her number with shaking hands. She answered on the second ring, her voice bright and warm. "Emily, hon. What's up? Getting excited for the big day tomorrow?" My own voice came out small and fragile, barely above a whisper. "Laura. I need you. Right now. I found something in the dress Robert gave me. White powder. Sewn into the lining." The line went completely silent for a beat. Then Laura's tone shifted, sharp, professional, urgent. "Emily, listen to me very carefully. Do not touch it again." "Have you handled it directly?" "Yes, a little." "Go wash your hands right now. Hot water, lots of soap. Scrub hard for at least 2 minutes. Then, if you have rubber gloves, put them on. Scrape just a tiny sample into a clean plastic bag. Seal it tight. And drive straight here to the hospital. Staff entrance. I'll be waiting." I did exactly what Laura told me to do, moving like a robot through the familiar rooms of my own house. I scrubbed my hands in the kitchen sink until the skin was pink and stinging, watching the hot water swirl down the drain as if it could wash away more than just the powder. I found the yellow rubber gloves under the sink, the ones I used for heavy cleaning, and slipped them on with shaking fingers. Then I went back upstairs, careful not to breathe too deeply near the bed, and scraped just a tiny pinch of the white residue into a clean plastic sandwich bag. I sealed it twice, then a third time for good measure. I grabbed my purse, my keys, and walked out the door without even changing out of my house clothes. The drive to the hospital was a blur. Red lights, green lights, the hum of the engine, it all passed without really registering. My mind kept replaying the same loop, the powder, Dad's face, Robert's smile when he handed me the box. Laura was waiting at the staff entrance, just as she promised. Her face was tight with worry the moment she saw me. No cheerful smile this time. She took the bag from my gloved hand without a word and disappeared into the lab. I paced the sterile hallway, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the smell of antiseptic sharp in my nose. Every minute felt like 10. Every worst thought raced through my head. What if it really was poison? What if Robert, the man I had shared my bed with, my meals with, my life with for over 30 years, had done this? How could I not have seen something? How could I have been so blind? I thought about our early years. The way he used to surprise me with picnics when we were young and broke. The way he held my hand in the delivery room when Jessica was born. The quiet pride in his eyes at Michael's college graduation. Had any of it been real? Or had something dark always been there, hidden just beneath the surface? Finally, after what felt like hours, Laura came back. Her eyes were wide, her face pale. She guided me gently to a small bench in the hallway and sat down beside me. "Emily, you need to sit." I was already sitting. My legs had given out the moment I saw her expression. She took my hand. "It's a synthetic transdermal cardiotoxin. Slow acting. Designed to absorb through the skin when body heat activates it. A few hours of close contact, sitting through dinner, maybe a little dancing, even just normal movement, and it would cause cardiac arrest. Quiet. Clean. Undetectable without targeted testing." She paused, squeezing my hand tighter. "At your age, with Dad's history of heart issues in the family, no one would have questioned it. They would have called it natural causes. A tragic heart attack on your birthday. The words hit me like a physical blow. I couldn't breathe. The hallway tilted, the walls closing in. Poison. Planned. Deliberate. Hidden in a gift meant to make me feel beautiful on my special night. By my husband. Laura caught me as my knees buckled, holding me up before I slid to the floor. She was speaking, urgent, low words, but I could barely hear them over the roaring in my ears. Robert tried to kill me. The man who promised to love and cherish me, who stood beside me at our wedding, who kissed me goodnight every evening, had sewn death into the lining of a dress and wrapped it in a pretty bow. I don't remember crying. I don't remember much of the next hour at all. Laura made phone calls. She wouldn't let me leave. She wouldn't let me go home. Within an hour, a man arrived, mid-50s, calm gray eyes, plain clothes but carrying himself with quiet authority. Detective Mark Reynolds. Laura introduced him as someone she had worked with on forensic cases for years. Someone she trusted completely. We sat in a small, private consultation room. I told him everything. The dream. Dad standing at the foot of the bed. The exact words he said. The gift box. Robert's unusual excitement. The way he insisted I wear that specific dress. Margaret Hayes and her casual mention of the extra reinforcement. The ridge in the lining. The powder. The lab results. I laid it all out, voice steady at first, then breaking as the reality sank in deeper. When I finished, Detective Reynolds closed his notebook slowly and looked at me, not with pity, but with a steady, professional calm that somehow made me feel a little less like I was falling apart. Mrs. Thompson. Emily, your husband has been on our radar for several months. He leaned forward slightly. Significant gambling debts. Bad investments gone wrong. Money owed to some very dangerous people, people who don't take kindly to late payments. 6 months ago, he took out a $2 million life insurance policy on you. Double indemnity if the death was ruled accidental or natural. He let that sink in. We suspected something was in the works, but we had no proof of intent. No evidence he was planning to act on it. Until now. He glanced at Laura, then back to me. Your birthday dinner is tomorrow night, correct? I nodded numbly. We can end this safely. Cleanly. You go to the dinner exactly as planned. You act normal. But you wear something else, anything else. My team will be there, blended in with your guests. Undercover. When he realizes you're not wearing the dress, when he sees his plan isn't working, he'll react. And we'll have him. I stared at him, the words slow to process. He wanted me to sit across from the man who tried to murder me. To smile. To laugh. To pretend everything was fine. Knowing the entire room could explode into chaos at any moment. I was terrified. But then I thought of Dad's face in the dream, pleading, urgent. I thought of Jessica, David, Lily, and Ethan. I thought of never holding my grandbabies again. Never seeing them grow up. I thought of how close I had come to putting that dress on without question. And I nodded. I'll do it. That night was the longest of my entire life. I didn't go home. Laura insisted I stay with her. She has a cozy guest room in her little bungalow across town, the one she bought after her divorce 10 years ago. I sat on the edge of the bed in my borrowed pajamas, staring at nothing, while Laura made chamomile tea and spoke in that calm, steady voice she used to use with frightened patients back when we were nurses together. She reminded me that I was safe now. That Robert had no idea what I knew. That tomorrow the police would be ready. But safe didn't feel real. Not yet. Every room in my own house, the one I had loved for 25 years, now felt poisoned in my memory. The couch where we watched Sunday night movies. The kitchen table where we planned vacations we never quite took. The bed where he had slept beside me just last night, breathing slow and even while I woke up to my dead father's warning. All of it felt like a lie. I kept picturing Robert coming home to an empty house. Walking through the rooms, calling my name. Seeing the dress still hanging in the closet, the tiny snip in the lining I had tried to hide by folding it just so. Would he notice? Would he panic? Laura sat with me until the tea went cold. She held my hand and let me cry when the tears finally came, silent, exhausting tears that felt like they had been building for years. Eventually she tucked me in like I was a child, kissed my forehead, and whispered, "You are stronger than you know, Em. You always have been." I didn't sleep. I lay awake in the dark, listening to the unfamiliar creaks of Laura's house, watching the hours crawl by on the clock. Morning came gray and slow. My birthday. 58 years old. I should have been excited, waking up to cards from the grandkids, Robert making his slightly burnt pancakes like he did every year, maybe a quiet moment with coffee on the porch before getting ready for the party. Instead, I was hiding in my best friend's guest room, trying to find the courage to face the man who wanted me dead. Laura drove me home mid-morning so I could get ready. Detective Reynolds had arranged for an unmarked car to watch the house from a distance, just in case. Robert was already there when we pulled up. He met me at the door, concern etched on his face, arms open like everything was normal. "Em, where were you?" "I was worried sick." "You didn't answer your phone." "I had turned it off last night." "On purpose." "I stayed at Laura's," I said, forcing my voice to stay light. "We got to talking and it got late. Lost track of time." "Sorry, honey." He hugged me, tight, familiar, and for one terrifying second I almost pulled away. But I made myself hug him back. Made myself breathe in the same cologne he had worn for 20 years. "You okay?" he asked, pulling back to look at me. "You seem tired." "Big day," I said with a weak smile. "Just a lot on my mind with the party tonight." He nodded, kissed my cheek, and said he had a few errands to run but would be back in plenty of time to get ready. The moment his car pulled out of the driveway, my knees nearly gave out. Laura caught me, guided me inside, and we sat at the kitchen table while she repeated the plan. "Wear something else. Act normal. The police will be there. You are not alone." I chose the navy dress from last year's retirement party, simple, comfortable, nothing flashy. It was the opposite of the emerald gown in every way. Safe. Mine. I did my hair the way I always did, soft curls around my face. Makeup to hide the dark circles and the fear in my eyes. When Robert came home to change, he walked into the bedroom and stopped dead in the doorway. His eyes flicked over me, head to toe. No shimmering emerald silk. No dress he had watched me admire for weeks. Just ordinary navy blue. "You're not wearing the dress I got you," he said. His voice was quiet, tight, trying, and failing, to sound casual. I turned from the mirror with a small smile I had practiced in my head 100 times. Decided to go with this one instead. It's my birthday, after all. I wanted something comfortable. He stepped closer. Too fast. Emily. I went to all that trouble. The seamstress, the custom work, we agreed you'd wear it. His eyes searched mine, and for the first time I saw it clearly, panic. Real, raw panic mixed with something darker. Anger he was trying so hard to keep hidden. I held his gaze and shrugged lightly. It's beautiful, Robert. Really. I'll wear it another time. Tonight I just want to feel like me. He opened his mouth, closed it again. His hands flexed at his sides. For one heart-stopping moment I thought he might grab me. Force me to change. Do something right there in our bedroom. But he didn't. He just nodded stiffly and turned to get ready himself. The drive downtown to Bella Vista was silent. He gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles were white. Every few minutes he glanced over at me, like he was waiting. Waiting for something to happen. Waiting for me to clutch my chest. To slump over. To give him the excuse he needed. I stared out the window and prayed the police were already in place. We pulled into the parking lot of Bella Vista just as the sun was dipping below the horizon, painting the sky in soft pinks and oranges. The restaurant looked exactly as I had pictured it for weeks, warm lights glowing in the windows, ballet attendants in crisp white shirts, the faint sound of laughter and clinking glasses spilling out every time the door opened. Robert handed the keys to the valet and offered me his arm, just like he had on countless date nights over the years. I slipped my hand through it, forcing myself to smile up at him as if this were any other celebration. As if my heart wasn't hammering so hard I was sure he could feel it through my sleeve. Inside, the private room was beautiful. String lights twinkled overhead like tiny stars. Fresh flower centerpieces, white roses and baby's breath, sat on every table. Balloons in silver and navy bobbed gently near the ceiling. A long table at the front held gifts wrapped in pretty paper, and a 3-tier vanilla buttercream cake waited proudly on its stand. Friends and family were already there, milling around with drinks in hand, faces lighting up the moment they saw me. Jessica spotted me first. She rushed over in a swirl of perfume and excitement, throwing her arms around me. Mom. Happy birthday. You look beautiful. David followed right behind her, hugging me next, then scooping up Lily and Ethan so they could plant sticky kisses on my cheeks. Lily whispered in my ear that she had drawn me a special card, and Ethan proudly showed off the Happy Birthday Grandma sticker on his shirt. My heart ached with love for them, and with terror at how close I had come to never seeing them again. I scanned the room quickly, casually. There, at a corner table near the back, sat 3 people I didn't immediately recognize. A middle-aged couple chatting quietly, and a younger woman sipping wine and checking her phone. They looked like any other guests. Friends of friends, maybe. But I knew better. Detective Reynolds had described them perfectly. His team. Watching. Waiting. Robert stuck close to my side all evening. Too close. His hand on the small of my back. His arm brushing mine as we moved through the crowd. He smiled and shook hands and accepted congratulations, but I could feel the tension radiating off him like heat. He kept glancing at me. At my dress. At my face. Searching for signs. Waiting for the poison to take hold that never would. Every time someone pulled me away for a hug or a photo, he hovered nearby, ready to step in. The first hour passed in a blur of happy birthdays and toasts. Old friends from the library. Neighbors we'd known for decades. Jessica's in-laws. A few of Robert's colleagues who had come to celebrate. He excused himself twice to take a call outside. Each time he came back paler, more distracted, his smile tighter. I laughed in all the right places. Posed for pictures with the grandkids on my lap. Thanked everyone for coming. But inside, my nerves were frayed to threads. I kept thinking, how much longer? When will he realize it's over? When will he break? Then the lights dimmed. The waitstaff wheeled out the cake, candles flickering brightly on top, 58 of them glowing like tiny beacons. Everyone gathered around, phones raised, ready to capture the moment. The first notes of happy birthday filled the room. I stood at the head of the table, Robert right beside me, his hand resting lightly on my shoulder. Voices rose, warm, joyful, off-key in the best way. Jessica's clear soprano. Ethan's enthusiastic shouting. Lily's sweet little voice trying to keep up. I looked at the cake, 3 perfect tears covered in buttercream roses, and made my wish. Not for health or happiness this year. For justice. For peace. For this nightmare to finally end. I leaned forward and blew out the candles in one long breath. The room erupted in applause and cheers. Cameras flashed. For a moment, everything felt almost normal. Then something shifted inside me. A calm I didn't know I still possessed. A strength that rose up like a wave. I turned toward the small microphone that had been set up near the cake table for toasts. Hands steady for the first time in days, I picked it up. The room quieted expectantly, smiles all around. Robert realized what I was doing half a second too late. Emily, he hissed under his breath, stepping forward fast. Sit down. I looked straight at him for a long beat. Then I turned to the room. Thank you all, so much, for coming here tonight to celebrate with me. Turning 58 feels like an absolute miracle right now, because I almost didn't make it. A ripple of confused laughter. A few concerned murmurs. I kept going. The beautiful emerald dress my husband gave me as a birthday gift wasn't just a dress. It was lined, carefully, deliberately, with a slow-acting transdermal poison. Designed to absorb through my skin over the course of an evening like this one. If I had worn it tonight, if I had put it on without question, I wouldn't be standing here blowing out candles with the people I love most in this world. Gasps echoed through the room. Jessica's hand flew to her mouth. David froze beside her. Friends stared in stunned silence, forks halfway to their mouths. Robert's face twisted, rage, panic, desperation all at once. She's lying, he shouted, voice cracking. She's lost her mind. She's been confused lately, stress, maybe early dementia. He lunged toward me. But he never got close. In an instant, the 3 guests from the corner table were on their feet. Detective Reynolds and his officers moved through the crowd like they had rehearsed it 100 times. Robert was blocked, grabbed, spun around. Before he could take another step, his arms were wrenched behind his back and cold metal cuffs snapped around his wrists. The room exploded into chaos, cries of shock, people standing, chairs scraping, someone screaming. Jessica collapsed into David's arms, sobbing. I just stood there, microphone still in my hand, watching the man I had loved for over 30 years being taken down like a common criminal. And for the first time in days, I could breathe. The chaos in that private room felt like it lasted forever, but in reality it was only minutes. Officers secured Robert quickly and professionally, reading him his rights in calm, measured tones while he shouted over them, denials, accusations, pleas that grew more frantic with every second. His face was red, twisted, nothing like the steady, composed man everyone in that room thought they knew. Jessica was sobbing in David's arms, the grandkids clinging to their parents' legs, wide-eyed and confused. Friends stood frozen in shock, some crying quietly, others whispering in disbelief. A few people had their phones out, recording. Later I would learn that clips of the arrest went viral on local news, but in that moment I barely noticed. Detective Reynolds approached me carefully, gently taking the microphone from my hand as if I might shatter. He asked if I was okay, if I needed to sit down. I nodded, then shook my head. I wasn't sure what I needed. Laura, bless her, pushed through the crowd and wrapped her arms around me. She held me up when my legs finally gave out. She whispered over and over that it was over, that I was safe, that I had done the bravest thing she had ever seen. They took Robert away through a side door to avoid the main restaurant. The last glimpse I had of him was his head bowed as officers led him out, cuffed, defeated, smaller than I had ever seen him. The party, of course, was over. Waitstaff quietly began clearing plates. Guests gathered their things in stunned silence, coming up to me one by one to hug me, to say they were sorry, to promise they were there if I needed anything. Jessica couldn't even speak at first, she just held on to me like she was 8 years old again. Eventually Detective Reynolds pulled me, Jessica, and Laura into a small side room to explain what would happen next. Statements would need to be taken tonight. The dress, the powder sample, and the lab results would be processed as evidence. Robert would be booked, questioned, held without bail given the severity of the charge, attempted murder. He looked at me with genuine respect. "You did everything right, Mrs. Thompson. Your quick thinking, your trust in your instincts, this case is airtight because of you." I didn't feel strong. I felt hollow. Like someone had scooped out 31 years of my life and left nothing but questions. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind I barely remember. Endless interviews with detectives and prosecutors. Forensic reports confirming the poison was exactly what Laura had identified: rare, expensive, untraceable in a standard autopsy. Bank records and phone logs that painted a picture of a man drowning in debt, secret gambling accounts, loans from people with criminal ties, threatening messages he had tried to hide. And then the life insurance policy. $2 million. Double indemnity clause. Signed 6 months ago, right around the time he started acting distant, distracted. The trial came faster than I expected. Robert took a plea deal to avoid a full jury trial, 15 years with no possibility of parole. He sat in that courtroom looking small and broken, nothing like the confident man who used to command client meetings. When it was my turn to give a victim impact statement, I stood up and spoke directly to him for the first time since the arrest. "I loved you," I said, my voice steady even though my hands were shaking. "I trusted you with my life every single day for over 30 years. And you looked me in the eye, handed me a gift, and planned my death like it was just another financial transaction." He wouldn't meet my eyes. "I hope one day you understand what you tried to take from me, from our children, from our grandchildren. But I won't waste any more of my life waiting for that day." The judge sentenced him, the gavel fell, and it was done. I sold the house in Charlotte within weeks. Every room echoed with memories I no longer wanted, good ones twisted now into something painful and false. The wraparound porch where we used to watch sunsets. The kitchen where he taught Jessica to make pancakes. The bedroom where my dead father appeared to save my life. I couldn't breathe in that house anymore. With Jessica's help, I found a cozy little bungalow on the edge of Asheville, nestled in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Mountain views from every window. A wide front porch perfect for morning coffee. A small garden already blooming with someone else's perennials. I took a part-time job at the local library, quiet shelves, kind patrons, the familiar smell of books that always felt like home. Healing wasn't quick. Some nights I still woke up gasping, checking the foot of the bed for Dad's silhouette. Some days the betrayal hit me fresh, like a wave I didn't see coming. But slowly, steadily, the good days outnumbered the bad. Jessica and the kids visited almost every weekend. Lily and Ethan running through the mountain air, filling the house with laughter and chaos and sticky hugs. David barbecuing on the porch while Jessica and I sipped wine and talked about everything and nothing. Some mornings I sit out on that porch wrapped in a quilt my mother made decades ago, watching the sun rise over the mountains. Mist rising from the valleys. Birds singing. Coffee steaming in my hands. And in those quiet moments I feel Dad. Not as a ghost or a dream, but as a presence. Watching. Protecting. Still looking out for his little girl. He was right. Those gut feelings we try to explain away. Those dreams that shake us awake in the night. They're not random. They're gifts. Warnings we ignore at our own peril. I trusted mine. And it saved my life. So here I am. A year and a half later, sitting on my porch in Asheville as the sun crests over the Blue Ridge Mountains, painting everything in soft gold. The air smells like pine and fresh coffee. A light breeze rustles the wind chimes Jessica hung for me last Mother's Day. Life didn't just go on, it got better. Quieter in some ways, louder in others. Real again. I still work part-time at the library. I've made new friends, women who don't know the whole story unless I choose to tell it. I've taken up watercolor painting, terrible at it, but it makes me laugh. I travel a little, short trips with Jessica and the kids, weekends at the beach, a cruise last spring with Laura where we danced until midnight and didn't worry about anything except which dessert to order. I'm not the same Emily I was before that dream. Some parts of me are stronger. Some parts are softer. I cry more easily at kindness now. I trust more slowly. But I also listen, really listen, to that quiet voice inside that I used to brush off as imagination or anxiety. Dad gave me the greatest gift anyone ever could that night. He reached across whatever divides life and death and handed me back my future. I don't know how it works. I don't need to. I just know that when something feels off, even a little off, I pay attention now. If a relationship starts to feel one-sided, I speak up. If a situation makes my stomach twist, I walk away. If a dream shakes me awake with a message too clear to ignore, I listen. Because here's what I've learned the hard way, your instincts are there for a reason. They're the quiet accumulation of every experience, every pattern you've seen, every red flag you might not even consciously register. Their protection. Their wisdom wearing everyday clothes. And sometimes, just sometimes, they're a loved one who's already gone, still watching over you, refusing to let you fall. So if you're listening to this and something in your world feels wrong, if a gift doesn't feel like love, if a promise feels hollow, if your gut is whispering, or shouting, for you to pause, to look closer, to get help, please listen. You deserve to feel safe in your own home. You deserve to be loved by people who would never hurt you. You deserve to trust your own voice. Rebuilding after betrayal isn't easy. It's one careful step at a time. One sunrise. One laugh with people who truly see you. One day where the pain feels a little farther away. But oh, it's worth it. You are stronger than you know. You are braver than you feel in your darkest moments. And you are never, ever alone. If this story touched you, please like the video. And if you want more stories like this one, subscribe and stay close. I have many more to share with you. Until next time. Take care of yourselves. Trust your gut. Listen to your dreams. And know that you are loved, truly, deeply loved, just as you are. See you soon.